Flight confirmed, I said into the phone, not noticing the shadow in the doorway. The reservation agent's cheerful voice continued as footsteps approached behind me. 47 seconds later, I was on the kitchen floor, my phone skittering across the tiles. He thought the slap wouldn't leave marks. He was wrong about that, and about so much more, like the fact that I'd been recording everything for weeks, or that the house he claimed as his own had my name buried in the original deed. Some mistakes take years to make, but only days to pay for. My name is Morgan Hayes, and I never thought I'd be back in my childhood bedroom at 33, staring at the same water stain on the ceiling that looked like a rabbit when I was 12. The nonprofit legal aid office where I worked had given me time off after the breakup with Daniel, but I'd stretched it too long. My savings were dwindling, and Mom's offer to stay just until you get back on your feet seemed logical at the time. That Monday morning, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, scrolling through apartment listings in Denver. The coffee was weak, Mom always made it that way, and I could hear Rick's truck idling in the driveway. He worked construction, left at 7 sharp every morning, except today, apparently. Yeah, I need to confirm my flight for next Monday, I said into my phone, walking to the window. Morgan Hayes. Confirmation number is... I pulled up the email on my laptop. KLM4782. The reservation agent's voice was professionally cheerful. Yes, Ms. Hayes, I have you here. Des Moines to Denver, departing at 7:45 a.m. Perfect, thank you. I didn't hear Rick come back inside. Construction boots can be surprisingly quiet on linoleum when someone wants them to be. Going somewhere. I turned, phone still in hand. He filled the doorway 6'2" of sun-damaged skin and permanent scowl. His Carhartt jacket was unzipped, revealing the beer gut that had expanded considerably since he'd married Mom 8 years ago. Just handling some business, I said, keeping my voice neutral. One thing I'd learned at the legal aid office: never escalate with aggressive personalities. Business in Denver. Mom appeared behind him in her robe, coffee mug in hand. Her face already wore that familiar expression, the one that said, "Please don't make trouble." I'm moving back, I said simply. Found an apartment, starting work again next week. And when were you planning to mention this? Rick's voice had that edge, the one I remembered from countless dinner arguments I'd witnessed from the hallway as a teenager. I'm mentioning it now. Show some respect when you talk to me. I am being respectful. That's when it happened. Not a closed fist, Rick was smarter than that. An open palm, fast and hard across my left cheek. The phone flew from my hand. Clattering across the floor, I stumbled backward, hip hitting the counter. The kitchen went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Mom set down her coffee mug carefully, like it might explode. Rick, you're going to be late for work. He looked at me, then at her, then back at me. You want to live under my roof. You show proper gratitude. You want to leave. Then leave. But you don't make secret plans like some sneaky little... That's enough, Mom interrupted, which surprised us both. But her next words didn't. Morgan, why don't you go to your room and cool off? I touched my cheek, already hot, but probably no visible mark. Rick knew what he was doing. I picked up my phone screen, cracked but still functional, and walked past them both without a word. In my room, I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the voice recorder app. My hands were steady. 3 years of working with domestic violence victims had taught me the importance of documentation. Monday, September 15th, 8:17 a.m., I said quietly. Rick Williams struck me in the kitchen after learning about my plans to move to Denver. Open-handed slap to the left side of my face. Mom witnessed. No visible marks yet. I saved the file and uploaded it to 3 different cloud services. Then I opened my laptop and began typing a more detailed account while everything was fresh. Time stamps, exact words, the way Mom had looked at the floor instead of at me. The thing about growing up in dysfunction is that you think it's normal until you don't. Working at legal aid had opened my eyes to patterns I'd been blind to my whole life. The control, the sudden anger, the way Mom always made excuses. But there was something Rick didn't know, something I'd discovered 3 weeks ago while helping Mom look for tax documents in the basement filing cabinet. The deed to this house, the house Rick called his, had originally been in my grandparents' names. When Grandma died, it passed to Grandpa. When Grandpa died during my senior year of college, it was supposed to pass to me. He told me so, made me promise to take care of the place. Instead, I'd found a quitclaim deed dated just 2 months after the funeral, my signature on the bottom, transferring the property to Mom and Rick jointly. Except I'd been in finals week at Iowa State that entire month. I'd never signed anything. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Allie's contact. We'd met when she was a law student volunteering at the clinic. Now she had her own practice specializing in family law and domestic violence cases. More importantly, she owed me a favor after I'd helped her dig up crucial evidence in a custody case last year. "Hey, Morgan, how's the home vacation going?" "Not great. I need to see you. Today, if possible." Her voice shifted from casual to professional. "Are you safe right now?" "For the moment." "Can you get to my office?" "Give me an hour." I hung up and began gathering documents, the voice recording, photos of the deed, bank statements showing I'd been in Ames when the transfer supposedly happened. 3 weeks of preparation were about to pay off. Rick thought he'd won something by hitting me. He thought I was just another woman he could push around in his own house. He was about to learn exactly whose house this really was, by noon. My cheek showed nothing, not even a faint red mark. Rick had perfected his technique over the years, I was sure of that now. The kind of violence that leaves no evidence, just fear and doubt. Did it really happen if there's no proof? I stood in the bathroom, examining my face from every angle. Nothing, just like he planned. "Morgan," Mom knocked softly. "Can I come in?" I opened the door. She stood there with an ice pack wrapped in a dish towel, the same floral pattern from my childhood. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Thought you might want this," she said, holding it out like a peace offering. "There's nothing to ice, Mom. He made sure of that." She flinched. "He didn't mean it. You know how he gets about respect. His father was the same way." I took the ice pack anyway, pressing it against my cheek. The cold felt good, even if it was unnecessary. "How long has he been hitting you?" "He doesn't—" She stopped, reconsidered. "He's never laid a hand on me." "Just me, then?" "This was the first time—" "No, Mom. This was the first time you saw—" Her face crumpled slightly, aging her 10 years in an instant. "You're being dramatic. One little slap, and you're ready to burn the whole house down." "One little slap," I repeated. "Is that what you'll tell yourself next time? And the time after that?" She straightened, finding her spine the way she always did when cornered. "If you can't respect the man who keeps a roof over your head, maybe you should leave earlier than Monday." "The man who keeps a roof over my head." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "This is Grandpa's house. Mom, you know it, I know it, and somewhere deep down, Rick knows it too." Her face went pale. "That's ancient history. The deed." "The deed I supposedly signed while I was 200 miles away taking finals." Silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Finally, she turned away. "Rick will be home for lunch in an hour. Maybe you should be gone by then." She left me standing there with the ice pack dripping onto the bathroom floor. I waited until I heard her bedroom door close, then went to my room and pulled out the small voice recorder I'd bought 3 weeks ago. It was magnetized, designed to stick under desks or tables. I'd placed it under the kitchen table the day I found the forged deed. The device had been recording on a loop, saving the last 48 hours of audio. I connected it to my laptop and scrolled through the timeline to this morning. There it was, 8:14 a.m. to 8:18 a.m. I put in my earbuds and listened. My voice. "Just handling some business." Rick's voice. "Business in Denver." The conversation. The slap. The sound of my phone hitting the floor. All of it. Crystal clear. But then I kept listening. Mom's voice. After I'd left, "You can't just hit her, Rick." I barely touched her. "That's not the point. She's smart. She works with lawyers. What files a report? With what evidence you saw nothing? I saw nothing. She's an emotional woman who's bitter about her breakup. She mentioned the house. A pause. Then Rick, what about it? She knows something about the deed. Another pause, longer this time. When Rick spoke again, his voice was lower, more dangerous. Then maybe it's time she found somewhere else to live. Permanently. Rick, no, she's my daughter. She's a problem, and I solve problems. The recording continued, but I'd heard enough. I exported the file, uploaded it to multiple clouds, and emailed a copy to my personal account with the subject line, Insurance. My phone buzzed. A text from Allie. Can you meet at 2 instead? Had a court emergency. I replied, yes, bringing evidence. I began packing methodically. Not everything that would be too obvious, just essentials and documents, my laptop, the recorder, printed copies of the deed, bank statements, my passport, enough to disappear for a while if necessary. At 12:45, I heard Rick's truck in the driveway. I was in the kitchen, making a sandwich like nothing had happened. He walked in, saw me, and stopped. Still here. Still here, I confirmed, taking a bite of my sandwich. He went to the refrigerator, pulled out a beer. Noon on a Monday. Your mother says you're leaving early. Probably for the best. He popped the cap off against the counter, leaving another mark in the wood. You know, I've been good to you. Kept this roof over your head when you came crawling back. Very generous of you. He took a long pull from the beer, studying me. You remind me of your grandmother. Same stubborn streak, same ungrateful attitude. I set down my sandwich. You knew my grandmother. Met her once, right before she died. Bitter old woman. Thought she was better than everyone. When was this? He shrugged. Does it matter? She's dead. Your grandfather's dead. Ancient history, like your mother says. But something in his eyes flickered. A tell. 3 years of watching defendants lie in depositions had taught me to recognize that flicker. Did you know she wanted to leave the house to me? The beer bottle paused halfway to his mouth. Your grandmother. My grandfather. He told me before he died. Said the house should stay with blood family. Rick set the bottle down carefully. Well, he changed his mind. Didn't he? Signed it over to your mother and me. Did he? We stared at each other across the kitchen. The same kitchen where he'd hit me 4 hours ago. The same kitchen where my grandparents had cooked Sunday dinners for 40 years. Careful, little girl, he said finally. You're walking on thin ice. I'm not a little girl, and you're standing in my grandparents' kitchen, drinking beer at noon on a Monday, threatening me in my own house. His face flushed red. For a moment, I thought he might hit me again. Part of me hoped he would. The recorder was running. Instead, he picked up his beer and headed for the door. You've got until Friday, then you're gone, one way or another. After his truck pulled away, I finished packing. Mom stayed in her room, probably pretending to nap. I loaded my car quietly, taking only what was mine. The last thing I grabbed was an old photo album from the hall closet, pictures of my grandparents. The house, evidence of our family's history here. As I drove to Allie's office, I thought about Rick's words. One way or another. He'd just made a crucial mistake. He'd made a threat, on tape. And I was about to make sure it was the last mistake he ever made in my grandparents' house. Allie's office was on the second floor of a renovated Victorian downtown. I sat in the waiting room, the photo album on my lap, listening to the muffled sounds of her finishing with another client. When the door opened, a woman emerged with red-rimmed eyes, clutching a manila folder. She nodded at me, the universal acknowledgement between people in lawyers' waiting rooms. We were all here because life had gone sideways. Morgan, come in. Allie stood in the doorway, professional in her navy suit but with concern written across her face. As soon as the door closed behind us, she dropped the formality. Jesus, you look like hell. What happened? I told her everything. The slap, the recording, the forged deed. She took notes on a legal pad, occasionally asking for clarification. When I played her the audio from this morning, Her expression darkened. One way or another, she repeated. That's a threat. Can we use it? We can use all of it, but Morgan, I need to ask, are you safe going back there? I'm not going back. I've got a motel room. She nodded, relieved. Good. Now, let's talk about the deed. You said you were in Ames when it was supposedly signed. I pulled out the bank statements. Here, debit card transactions, coffee shop near campus, university bookstore, grocery store, all dated the same week as the deed signing. Allie studied the documents. What about the notary? Every deed needs to be notarized. Linda Hutchinson. She runs a tax service on Maple Street. I know her. She's been around forever. Allie made a note. We'll need to subpoena her records. If she notarized a forged signature, she could lose her license. At minimum, Allie leaned back in her chair. Morgan, I need you to understand what we're about to do. Once we file this, there's no going back. Your relationship with your mother is already over. She chose him. And Rick will fight dirty. Men like him always do when they're cornered. I thought about the flicker in his eyes when I'd mentioned my grandfather. He's hiding something else, about my grandparents. What makes you think that? The way he reacted when I mentioned meeting my grandmother, he said it was right before she died, but she died 3 years before he even met my mother. Allie made another note. We'll look into it. Now, let's discuss immediate steps. First, we file for a restraining order based on the assault and threats. Second, we file a quiet title action to challenge the deed. Third, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned. That's odd. I have a news alert set for domestic violence cases in the county. There was an incident on your street about an hour ago. My blood went cold. What kind of incident? She turned her computer monitor toward me. The local news website showed a photo of my mother's house, my grandparents' house with police cars in the driveway. Local woman hospitalized after domestic dispute, the headline read. Mom, I whispered. Allie was already dialing. Yes, this is Allie Brennan. I'm representing a client who may be connected to the incident on Oakwood Drive. Yes, I'll hold. I stared at the photo. Rick's truck was in the driveway. An ambulance was pulling away. Thank you, officer. Allie hung up. Your mother is at St. Mary's, non-life-threatening injuries. Rick was arrested. I was already standing, grabbing my keys. Morgan, wait, you can't. She's my mother. And she didn't protect you. She blamed you. I know, I paused at the door. But if I don't go, I'm no better than her. At the hospital, I found Mom in room 302. Her left arm was in a sling, and the right side of her face was swollen. Unlike Rick's calculated slap, this had left marks, plenty of them. She was awake, staring at the ceiling. When she saw me, tears started flowing. I told him you were gone, she said, that you'd packed up and left. But he found your recorder under the table. He went crazy. I sat in the visitor's chair. Part of me wanted to say I told you so. The rest of me just felt tired. The police took it as evidence, she continued. The recorder. They heard everything. The threat. Him talking about the deed. All of it. Good. She turned to look at me fully. I'm sorry. For this morning. For everything. Are you? He wasn't always like this. In the beginning. Mom, stop. Please. I don't want to hear about how he used to bring you flowers or whatever. I want to know about the deed. She closed her eyes. I needed money. Your father hadn't paid child support in years. I was working 2 jobs. Rick said he knew someone who could help with a loan, but we needed collateral. So you forged my signature. Rick said you'd never know, that by the time you graduated, we'd have paid it back and could transfer it properly. But you never paid it back. Rick's friend wasn't a bank. The interest kept growing. Rick said the only way out was to marry him, combine our incomes. He said he loved me, wanted to take care of us. And you believed him. I was drowning. Morgan, and he threw me a rope. I didn't see the noose at the end until it was too late. A knock at the door interrupted us. A detective entered, young, earnest-looking, badge clipped to his belt. Ms. Hayes, I'm Detective Martinez. I understand you're the one who made the recording. Yes. We'd like to ask you some questions. Your mother has agreed to cooperate fully regarding the assault and, he glanced at his notes, some questions about a property deed. I looked at Mom. She nodded slightly. She was coerced, I said. Rick orchestrated the whole thing. We'll need statements from both of you, Martinez said, and any documentation you have regarding the property. My lawyer has everything. He handed me his card. Have her call me. And Miss Hayes, that recorder probably saved your mother's life. He was escalating. After he left, Mom reached for my hand with her good arm. The house should have been yours. Dad told me before he died. Said he was leaving it to you in the will. What happened to the will? Rick said it was invalid, that Dad wasn't in his right mind at the end. He had a lawyer friend who confirmed it. Let me guess, the same friend who arranged the loan. She nodded miserably. I've been such a fool. We'll fix it, I said, surprising myself. Allie will help us fix it. Why would you help me after? Because Grandpa would have wanted me to. Because this house means something. Because Rick doesn't get to win. She squeezed my hand weakly. He has friends, dangerous friends. The man who gave us the loan. We'll handle it. Rest now. I stayed until she fell asleep, then called Allie from the hospital parking lot. How is she? Allie asked. Broken arm, bruised face, and ready to testify. She admitted to the forgery. Says Rick coerced her. That helps. With her cooperation, we can file criminal charges for fraud, extortion, and now assault. Morgan, this is big. Bigger than just getting your house back. I know. I watched an ambulance pull up to the emergency entrance. How soon can we file? I'll have the paperwork ready by tomorrow morning. But Morgan, you need to stay safe. If Rick has connections like your mother suggested, I'll be careful. No, you'll be smart. Come stay with me tonight. My guest room is yours. I agreed, too tired to argue. As I drove away from the hospital, I thought about my grandfather. He'd built that house with his own hands after coming back from Korea. Every nail, every board, every brick in the foundation. He'd raised my mother there, welcomed my father there, celebrated my birth there. Rick thought he could steal all that with some paperwork and intimidation. He thought violence was power, that fear was control. He was about to learn what real power looked like, the kind that came from truth, evidence, and the law. And unlike his slap this morning, this was going to leave marks. That night at Allie's, I couldn't sleep. Her guest room was comfortable enough, crisp sheets, blackout curtains, the faint smell of lavender from a diffuser. But my mind kept racing. Around 2 a.m., I gave up and padded to the kitchen for water. Allie was already there, laptop open, coffee brewing despite the hour. Couldn't sleep either, she asked. Too much adrenaline. I sat across from her. What are you working on? Your case. I've been digging into property records. Morgan, when exactly did your grandmother pass? March 2016, why? She turned the laptop toward me. According to county records, your grandparents' house was paid off in 1987, no mortgages, no liens, nothing, until October 2016. 7 months after Grandma died. Right, that's when a $200,000 loan was taken out against the property. The lender is listed as Ridgeline Financial LLC. Never heard of them. Because they don't exist, not really. Allie pulled up another screen. Ridgeline Financial was dissolved in 2018, but before that, its registered agent was Thomas Hutchinson. Hutchinson, like Linda Hutchinson, the notary. Her son, he's also Rick's longtime friend and sometime employer. The pieces were clicking together. So Rick orchestrates a fake loan through his friend, uses his friend's mother to notarize the forged deed, and traps your mother in debt she can never repay. Classic predatory lending with a side of fraud. I thought about my grandfather, how careful he'd been with money, how proud he was to own the house outright. They planned this, targeted Mom after Grandma died. Appears so. I found something else. Allie pulled up a death certificate. Your grandmother's cause of death is listed as complications from a fall. She fell down the basement stairs. Mom found her. Who else was there that day? I tried to remember. I was at school. Mom was at work. Wait, Rick had started doing handyman work for them by then. He might have been... I stopped, the implication hitting me. We can't prove anything about that, Allie said quickly, but it establishes a pattern. He was already circling before she died. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. At 2:47 a.m. Don't answer that, Allie warned. But I'd already swiped. Hello. Heavy breathing. Then, you think you're smart, little girl. Not Rick's voice. Deeper, rougher. Who is this? Someone who knows you've been asking questions about things that aren't your business. Your boyfriend's in county. He's not there to protect you. He's not my boyfriend, and I don't need protection. A laugh. Yeah, your grandma probably thought that too, right before her accident. The line went dead. Allie was already on her phone. I need to report a threat. Yes, related to an ongoing case. I sat there, numb. They'd just admitted it, admitted they'd killed her. By morning, I had 3 more calls from blocked numbers. I didn't answer. Allie had contacted Detective Martinez, who promised increased patrols around both our locations. We need to move fast, Allie said over breakfast. They're panicking, which makes them dangerous but also sloppy. That call last night, that was a gift. A gift. Consciousness of guilt. They're scared enough to threaten you, which means we're on the right track. We spent the morning preparing documents, the quiet title action, the restraining order, criminal complaints for fraud and extortion. Allie worked with focused intensity, building an airtight case. Around noon, her paralegal knocked. There's a Linda Hutchinson here. Says she needs to speak with you urgently. Allie and I exchanged glances. Send her in. Linda Hutchinson was exactly what you'd expect from a small-town notary mid-60s. Sensible shoes, purse clutched like a shield. But her face was haggard, her eyes red. I heard about Rick's arrest, she said without preamble. And I know why you're investigating the deed. Mrs. Hutchinson, I should advise you to seek your own counsel, Allie began. I don't need a lawyer. I need to clear my conscience. She sat heavily in the client chair. I notarized that deed, but Morgan was never there. You knowingly notarized a forged signature, Allie asked. My son Tom said it was just paperwork, that Morgan had already agreed but was away at school. He said it was to help Sandra save the house. Tears started flowing. I've been a notary for 30 years. Never did anything improper until your son asked you to, I said gently. She nodded. He's mixed up with Rick and other things too. Bad things. After what happened to Sandra yesterday, I can't stay quiet anymore. Are you willing to testify? Allie asked. Yes, and there's more. She opened her purse, pulled out a flash drive. Tom keeps records on his computer. I copied them last night. Loans, property transfers, all of it. Not just your family, others too. Allie took the drive carefully. This could be evidence in multiple crimes. You understand that? My son made his choices. I made mine. Now I'm trying to make it right. After Linda left, Allie immediately called Detective Martinez. Within an hour, we were at the police station, turning over the flash drive and Linda's statement. This is bigger than we thought, Martinez said after reviewing the files. Looks like Rick and Tom Hutchinson have been running this scheme for years. Target elderly homeowners, create fraudulent debts, steal properties. How many victims? I asked. At least a dozen that I can see. Your grandmother may have been there first. I thought about that call last night. Someone called me, said my grandmother's fall wasn't an accident. Martinez's expression sharpened. When? Early this morning, around 2:45. We'll pull your phone records. If they're dumb enough to threaten you about a potential murder. Can you reopen her case? Allie asked. With this new evidence already in motion, he looked at me. You kicked over a rock, Ms. Hayes. No telling what's going to crawl out. That afternoon, Mom was released from the hospital. I picked her up, helped her into my car. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Allie's. You're staying with us until this is over. I can't impose." "Mom, they killed Grandma." She went very still. "What?" I told her about the call, about Linda's confession, about the flash drive. By the time I finished, she was crying again. "I brought him into our lives," she whispered. "I brought him into their house. You didn't know." "But I should have. The way he talked about the house, like he was entitled to it, the way he pushed to get married so fast after the loan." She wiped her eyes with her good hand. "Your grandfather would be so ashamed of me." "No," I said firmly. "He'd be proud that we're fighting back, that we're protecting what he built." That evening, Allie filed everything electronically. Quiet title action, criminal complaints, civil suits for fraud and elder abuse. The flash drive evidence had turned our single case into a RICO investigation. "Rick's still in jail?" I asked. "No bail yet. Thomas Hutchinson was arrested this afternoon." "Good." My phone rang, Mom's house number. "Who could be calling from there?" Mom asked. I put it on speaker. "Hello." "You think you've won," Rick's voice, but different, desperate. "You have no idea what you've started. The people I work for are going to cut you loose," I interrupted. "You're toxic now. Rick, a liability. They'll come after you." "Let them try. I've got evidence, witnesses, and the FBI is now involved. Your little property theft ring just became a federal case." Silence. "Then this was my house. I earned it." "By killing an old woman, by beating your wife, by threatening me. I made that place worth something. Fixed it up. Improved it. You put a beer bottle opener on my grandmother's kitchen counter. That's not an improvement. Rick, that's vandalism." "You little—" I hung up. Allie was already calling Martinez about the jail call. Mom looked at me with something like wonder. "You're not afraid of him." "I learned something at the legal clinic," I said. "Bullies like Rick count on fear. They need it. Take that away. And they're just sad. Angry men with nothing but their fists. And fists don't win in court." "What happens now?" "Now we take back what's ours, and make sure Rick and his friends never do this to anyone else." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Check your email." I opened it cautiously. A single message with an attachment. "Thought you should see this. A friend." The attachment was a video file. Security camera footage. Dated March 2016. My grandmother's house. The driveway view. I pressed play. There was Rick's truck. Pulling up at 9:47 a.m. Rick got out. Went inside. At 10:15 he came out quickly. Got in his truck. And drove away. Mom had found Grandma at 10:30. "Allie," I said quietly, "you need to see this." We had them. All of them. And my grandmother was finally going to get justice. The video changed everything. Detective Martinez had us in his office within an hour of receiving it. "Where did this come from?" he asked, studying the footage on his computer. "Anonymous email," I said. "Someone with access to old security footage wanted us to have it." "The Johnsons," Mom said suddenly. "They lived across the street. Bob was always tinkering with security cameras. He died last year, but his widow Ellen still lives there." Martinez made a note. "We'll need to verify the authenticity, establish chain of custody, but if this is real—" "It's real," Allie said. "Look at the timestamp format, the video quality. This is consistent with 2016 consumer security systems. I'll get a warrant for the Johnson property. See if there's more footage." Martinez paused the video on Rick's face as he left the house. He looks calm, no panic, no rush until he gets in the truck. "Because he thought he'd made it look like an accident," I said. That afternoon, while Martinez pursued the video lead, Allie and I worked on transcribing all my audio recordings. The kitchen recorder had captured more than just this week's events. I'd been moving it around the house for 3 weeks, and it had picked up countless conversations. "Listen to this," I said, playing a clip from last Tuesday. Rick's voice. "Tom says the other properties are ready to flip. 6 houses, probably $2 million total. Mom's voice. I don't want to know about Tom's business. Our business, Sandra. Those houses are in both our names now. I never signed anything for other houses. Sure you did. Remember that stack of papers for the refinancing? You signed plenty. I paused the recording. He's been forging her signature, too. Multiple counts of fraud, Allie said, making notes. This just keeps getting bigger. My phone rang. Ellen Johnson's name appeared on the screen. Mom must have given her my number at some point. Morgan, dear, I heard about what happened with Rick. Are you all right? I'm fine, Mrs. Johnson. Actually, I wanted to thank you for the video. A pause. I don't know what you mean. The security footage, from March 2016. Oh, her voice got quieter. Bob always said something wasn't right about that day. He kept all his recordings, backed up everything to drives in his workshop. Mrs. Johnson, would you be willing to talk to the police? Already did. That nice detective came by an hour ago. I gave him everything. 7 years of footage from 4 cameras. Bob would have wanted to help. After I hung up, Allie smiled grimly. 7 years of Rick coming and going. That's a goldmine for establishing patterns. That evening, we convened at Allie's dining room table, me, Mom, Allie, and her paralegal, Janet. The flash drive from Linda Hutchinson had yielded a trove of documents. 12 properties total, Janet reported. All elderly owners, all suddenly in debt to Ridgeline Financial, all transferred to either Rick Williams or Thomas Hutchinson within 18 months. My God, Mom whispered. Mrs. Chen, Mr. Kozlowski, the Brennan sisters. You know these people? Allie asked. From church. They all died or went to nursing homes in the last few years. Mom's face was pale. Rick did the handyman work for most of them. I felt sick. He was shopping for victims. The pattern is clear, Allie said. Befriend elderly homeowners, create fraudulent debts, forge signatures, steal houses, but your grandmother was different. She died before they could get her to sign anything. So they used me instead, Mom said bitterly. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number, but I recognized the area code, the county jail. Morgan Hayes. A woman's voice, nervous. This is Donna Hutchinson, Tom's wife. I need to talk to you. I'm listening. Tom wants to make a deal. He'll testify against Rick. Tell everything. But he needs protection. Rick has connections. People who'll kill to keep this quiet. I put the phone on speaker, gesturing for Allie to listen. What kind of connections? The loans came from somewhere. Tom and Rick were just the front men. The real money came from people you don't cross. Who? I don't know names. Tom kept me out of it, but he's scared, really scared. Says if Rick goes down, they'll clean house. Allie grabbed the phone. Mrs. Hutchinson, this is Allie Brennan, attorney for Ms. Hayes. Your husband needs to contact the FBI immediately. This is beyond local jurisdiction now. He wants immunity. That's not our call, but the first one to cooperate usually gets the best deal. After she hung up, we sat in silence. This is organized crime, Mom said finally. We're not just taking on Rick. We're taking on... I don't care, I interrupted. They killed Grandma. They stole from a dozen families. I'm not backing down. Neither am I, Allie said. But we need to be smart. I'm calling in favors. FBI, state police, everyone I know. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about my grandmother. She'd been 81, still sharp, still independent, still refusing to sell the house despite developers' offers. She'd fallen downstairs she'd climbed for 60 years. I pulled out the photo album I'd grabbed from the house. There she was at my college graduation, beaming, at her own 80th birthday party, dancing with Grandpa just months before he died, at their 60th anniversary, both of them standing in front of the house, his arm around her waist. I'm sorry, Grandma, I whispered to the photos. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. But I was seeing it now, and I was going to finish what she couldn't. The next morning brought chaos. The FBI had moved on the evidence, executing search warrants at 6 properties simultaneously. Rick and Tom were transferred to federal custody. 3 more men were arrested, including someone I recognized, Carl Brennan, who ran a local construction company. He employed Rick off and on, Mom explained. Legitimate business on the surface. Money laundering, Allie said. Buy properties with dirty money, flip them through construction companies, sell them clean. Detective Martinez called with updates throughout the day. They'd found more in Bob Johnson's footage, Rick entering and leaving my grandmother's house multiple times in the weeks before her death, including twice when she was supposedly alone. We're reclassifying her death as suspicious, Martinez told me. Can't promise murder charges will stick after 7 years, but we're going to try. By afternoon, the media had picked up the story. Elderly homeowner fraud ring exposed, ran across the local news. Rick's mugshot stared out from TV screens and websites. Mom watched the coverage with tears streaming down her face. All those families, all those people who trusted him, because I brought him into their lives. You were a victim too, I reminded her. But I survived. Mrs. Chen didn't. The Brennan sisters died thinking they'd lost everything. Then we make it right, I said. Every house they stole, every family they destroyed, we make it right. That evening, Allie filed amended complaints adding wrongful death claims for my grandmother and 3 other elderly victims. The flash drive revealed they'd all died within months of their properties being transferred. 4 potential murders, Allie said. The FBI is treating this as a serial case now. I thought about Rick in federal custody. No longer the big man intimidating women in his kitchen. Now he was just another number in an orange jumpsuit, facing life in prison. Good, I said. Let him feel helpless for once. My phone rang. Another unknown number. Ms. Hayes, this is AUSA Jennifer Chen from the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'll be prosecuting this case. I understand you have extensive recordings. Hours of them. Excellent. Your documentation may have just taken down one of the largest elder fraud operations in the Midwest. Can you come in tomorrow? Absolutely. After I hung up, Mom looked at me with something approaching awe. You did this. You recorded everything. Kept evidence. Refused to back down. I learned from Grandma, I said. She never backed down either. She'd be so proud. She'd be alive, I corrected. If I'd been paying attention, if I'd been here instead of away at school. Stop, Allie interrupted. This isn't your fault. You were 22, living your life. The only people to blame are the ones who killed her. She was right, but knowing that didn't ease the guilt entirely. That night, I dreamed of my grandmother. She was standing in her kitchen, making check collages like she did every Christmas. She smiled at me, flour dusting her apron. The house remembers, she said in the dream. It knows who belongs and who doesn't. I woke with tears on my face and a text from Detective Martinez. Thomas Hutchinson is talking. Says he has proof Rick pushed your grandmother. Video from his phone. Meet me at 8 a.m. The house remembered, and finally, it was ready to tell its secrets. At 8 a.m. sharp. I sat in Detective Martinez's office watching Thomas Hutchinson's confession video. Tom looked haggard, his orange jumpsuit hanging loose on his frame. Federal custody had aged him a decade in 2 days. I want to be clear, Tom said on the screen. I didn't know Rick was going to kill her. He said he was just going to pressure her to sign. The federal prosecutor, AUSA Jennifer Chen, paused the video. He goes on to describe entering the house with Rick that morning. She resumed playback. Tom's voice continued. Mrs. Hayes was in the basement doing laundry. Rick said he'd talk to her alone. I waited upstairs. About 10 minutes later, I heard a crash. Rick came up, said she'd fallen, that we needed to leave immediately. Did you check on her? The interviewer asked off-screen. No. Rick said touching anything would make us suspects. But later, he showed me this. The video cut to evidence Tom's old phone containing a shaky video clip. My grandmother at the top of the basement stairs, Rick behind her, his hand extending, a push, her arms windmilling as she fell backward into darkness. I couldn't breathe. Mom made a sound like a wounded animal. He recorded it. I managed to ask. Martinez nodded grimly. Apparently Rick didn't know. Tom says he started recording because he thought they were just going to talk. Instead, he captured a murder. Why didn't he report it? Mom demanded. Watch, Martinez said. The confession kept rolling. Tom said, Rick saw me with the phone. He told me if I ever showed anyone, he'd hurt Donna and make it look self-inflicted. Said our backers knew how to erase problems. Who were these people? The interviewer pressed. The Stepfather group. They run construction, real estate, bunch of legitimate businesses. But underneath, it's all mob money from Chicago. Martinez paused the video again. The Stepfather group, FBI's been after them for years. Your recordings and evidence just gave us the break we needed. I thought about the anonymous caller who'd threatened me. The people who'd make problems disappear. They'd seemed so powerful in the dark. Now they were just names on federal indictments. What happens now? Mom asked. Tom's in protective custody. He's agreed to testify against Rick and the Stefanovs. With the video evidence, Rick's looking at first-degree murder plus all the fraud charges. And my grandmother's house. Being processed as a crime scene, but ownership will revert to you once the court validates the fraudulent transfer. That afternoon, Allie filed an emergency motion to expedite the quiet title action. With Tom's confession and the murder video, no court would uphold the forged deed. The hearing's set for Friday. Allie told me. 3 days. Can you handle going back to the house? I need to, I said. For Grandma. The next 2 days blurred together. More FBI interviews, more evidence processing. Rick had been denied bail after prosecutors played the murder video in court. Local news covered the story nonstop elderly fraud ring. Murdered grandmother. Brave granddaughter, who exposed it all. I turned down interview requests. This wasn't about fame. It was about justice. Thursday night, Mom and I sat in Allie's living room. Mom's arm was still in a sling, but her bruises were fading. I've been thinking, she said, about the house. It should be yours, completely. Mom. No, listen, Dad wanted you to have it. I betrayed that. I betrayed them both by bringing Rick into their home. She took a shaky breath. I'll sign whatever papers needed. The house is yours. We'll live there together, I said. Once this is over, make new memories. She shook her head. I can't. Too many ghosts. But you're strong like they were. The house needs someone strong. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Tomorrow we'd go to court. Tomorrow a judge would decide if 7 years of lies could be undone with truth. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then recognized the jail prefix. Morgan, a gravelly voice. This is Carl Stephanov. My blood chilled. The head of the organization. Calling me directly. I'm recording this call, I lied. A chuckle. No, you're not. But it doesn't matter. I wanted to tell you something, woman to woman. Woman. Carl is usually a man's name. Carolina. Carl is easier for business. Her accent was faint but present. Eastern European. Your grandmother, that wasn't supposed to happen. Rick exceeded his authority. Murder wasn't part of your business plan. We're not killers, Ms. Hayes. We're business people. Rick was supposed to get signatures, not create corpses. But you covered for him. Until now, you've exposed something that needed exposing. Rick was a rabid dog. Tom was weak. Both were liabilities. Is this a threat? No, it's an apology and a promise. You'll have no trouble from us. The house is yours. The men who hurt your family will pay. Why should I believe you? Because I'm a grandmother too. Because some lines shouldn't be crossed. Because your recordings also exposed problems in my organization I needed to see. The line went dead. I sat there, processing. The head of a crime family had just apologized and promised protection. The world had turned upside down. Friday morning came crisp and clear. I dressed carefully, professional blazer, minimal makeup, grandmother's pearl earrings. Mom wore a navy dress that hid her sling. The courthouse was packed. Media, FBI agents, other victims from Rick's scheme. Ellen Johnson sat in the front row, giving me an encouraging nod. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Morales. Judge Morales was known for her no-nonsense approach to property law. She reviewed the files, the evidence, the video confession. "This is one of the most egregious cases of elder fraud I've seen," she began. "Combined with murder, it shocks the conscience. The deed transfer of March 2016 is hereby declared null and void. Full ownership of the property at 451 Oakwood Drive reverts to Morgan Hayes, the rightful heir." The gavel came down. Just like that. It was over. 7 years of theft undone in 7 minutes. But the judge wasn't finished. Furthermore, this court orders restitution to all victims of this criminal enterprise. Assets of Rick Williams, Thomas Hutchinson, and their co-conspirators will be liquidated to compensate the affected families. Cheers erupted from the gallery. Mom squeezed my hand with her good arm. Outside the courthouse, Detective Martinez approached. "Thought you should know Rick took a plea deal this morning. Life without parole. He's going to die in prison." "Good," I said, and meant it. Allie hugged me. "You did it. You got justice for your grandmother." "We did it," I corrected. "All of us." As the crowd dispersed, I noticed a black town car idling across the street. The window rolled down slightly, and I glimpsed an older woman with sharp eyes and silver hair, Carolina Stefanoff. She nodded once, then the window went up and the car pulled away. A promise kept. No trouble from that quarter. "Ready to go home?" Mom asked. Home. For the first time in years, the word meant something. "Yeah," I said. "Let's go home." We drove to Oakwood Drive in silence. The house looked different, somehow older, sadder, but still standing. Crime scene tape fluttered from the front door. I used my key. Inside, everything was as we'd left it Monday morning. Rick's beer bottle still on the counter, the kitchen table where he'd hit me, the basement door, closed and locked by investigators. "We'll clean it out," Mom said. "Start fresh. Maybe paint the walls yellow like Mama always wanted." I nodded, walking to the window. The same view my grandparents had seen every morning for 60 years. The oak tree they'd planted when they bought the place. The garden plot where Grandma grew tomatoes. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. A text from the Denver apartment complex. "Just checking if you still plan to move in Monday." I looked at the house, at Mom, at the life I'd almost run from. "Thanks, but I won't be needing the apartment. I'm staying home." Home, where my grandparents' memory lived in every board and brick, where justice had finally arrived, 7 years late but not forgotten, where Rick Williams would never set foot again. The weekend passed in a blur of cleaning and sorting. Mom and I worked side by side, exorcising Rick's presence from the house. His clothes went into garbage bags. His tools, many stolen from my grandfather's collection, were set aside for evidence. Every beer bottle ring on the furniture was scrubbed away. Sunday afternoon, Ellen Johnson appeared at the door with a casserole and a box. "Bob saved everything," she said, setting the box on the kitchen table. "These are from your grandparents. Photos, cards, even some video from the digital camera your grandfather got for Christmas one year." I opened the box with trembling hands. There they were, hundreds of moments I'd forgotten. Grandma teaching me to make kolaches. Grandpa showing me how to use a level, birthday parties, Christmases, ordinary Tuesday afternoons that now seemed precious. "Thank you," I managed through tears. "Bob always said your grandparents were the best neighbors anyone could ask for. He'd be glad to help set things right." Ellen patted my shoulder. "The whole neighborhood is talking about what you did, standing up to those monsters." After she left, Mom and I spent hours going through the photos. In one, dated just a month before Grandma's death, she stood in the garden, smiling at the camera, strong, vibrant, alive. "She knew something was wrong," Mom said suddenly. "The last time I saw her, she kept saying she needed to talk to you, said it was important." "What about—" "The house. She said she needed to explain something about the house to you, but then, Mom's voice broke. Then she was gone. That night, I slept in my old room for the first time since the assault. The house felt different without Rick's presence, lighter, cleaner, but also emptier. I thought about Grandma's words to Mom. What had she wanted to tell me? Monday morning arrived with unexpected visitors. A man and woman in FBI windbreakers stood on the porch. Ms. Hayes, I'm Agent Sullivan. This is Agent Torres. We're from the Financial Crimes Unit. Could we have a moment? I let them in, offered coffee. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where everything had started a week ago. We've been reviewing the evidence from the Stepfather organization. Agent Sullivan began. Your recordings and documentation have helped us uncover a network spanning 3 states, over 40 elderly victims, 15 million in stolen assets. 40 victims. I felt sick. That we know of so far. Your grandmother appears to have been the first. We think she figured out what Rick was planning. Agent Torres opened a file. We found this in Thomas Hutchinson's records, a letter from your grandmother to an attorney, dated 1 week before her death. I read the handwritten note. I believe someone is trying to steal my home. Richard Williams has been asking questions about my deed, my will, my finances. He claims to be helping, but I see his true nature. Please advise on how to protect my property for my granddaughter. Morgan. She knew, I whispered. The attorney never received it, Agent Sullivan explained. We found it in Hutchinson's possession. We believe Rick intercepted it. That's why he killed her. She was going to expose him before he even started. Your grandmother was a smart woman. Unfortunately, Rick was desperate. The Stefanovs were pressuring him to deliver properties. She was supposed to be an easy mark. I thought about Grandma, 81 and fierce, standing up to a man half her age. She died protecting our home. There's more, Agent Torres said. We've frozen significant assets from the Stepfather organization. The federal prosecutor wants to establish a restitution fund for all victims. You'd be the primary beneficiary as the first victim's heir and the whistleblower who exposed the scheme. How much? Preliminary estimates suggest around $2 million. I stared at them. I don't want blood money. It's not blood money, Agent Sullivan said gently. It's justice, your grandmother's estate, plus damages for wrongful death, plus whistleblower provisions. The money was stolen from elderly victims. Now it goes back to their families. After they left, I sat in Grandma's chair, looking out at her garden. $2 million. Enough to restore the house, help the other victims, maybe establish something in Grandma's memory. My phone rang. Allie? Morgan, I just got off the phone with the federal prosecutor. They want you to testify before the grand jury tomorrow. Your recordings are the cornerstone of their RICO case. I'll be there. There's something else. Tom Hutchinson's lawyer called. Tom has more evidence, photographs, documents, recorded conversations with Rick going back years. He wants to meet with you. Why? Apparently, he's found religion in federal lockup, wants to apologize personally to every victim's family, starting with you. I thought about it. Tom had stood by while Rick murdered my grandmother, but he'd also kept the evidence that would convict her killer. Set it up, I said finally. I want to hear what he has to say. Tuesday morning, I entered the federal courthouse through a secure entrance. The grand jury room was imposing dark wood, serious faces, the weight of justice palpable. For 3 hours, I testified, played recordings, explained the forged deed, described finding the truth. The jurors listened intently, some taking notes, others visibly angry at what they heard. One more question. Ms. Hayes, the prosecutor said, why didn't you just let it go? You could have moved to Denver, started over. I thought about Grandma's letter, her final attempt to protect our home. Because some things are worth fighting for, I said. My grandmother died defending her home. The least I could do was finish what she started. That afternoon, Allie drove me to the Federal Detention Center. Tom Hutchinson sat across a reinforced glass partition, phone in hand. He looked broken. I'm sorry, he began. I know it means nothing, but I'm sorry. I think about her every day. That sound when she fell. You could have saved her, called 911, done something. I know. I was a coward. Rick owed me debts, threats, fear, but that's no excuse. He pulled out a manila envelope, slid it through the document slot. I saved everything, every text, every photo, every conversation. 7 years of evidence. Maybe it helps balance the scales. I opened the envelope, photos of Rick at various properties, detailed notes about the scheme, text messages planning crimes, a treasure trove for prosecutors. Why save all this? Insurance, in case Rick turned on me, but also... He paused, choosing words carefully. Your grandmother was kind to me once, when I was doing legitimate handyman work, before Rick corrupted everything. She made me lemonade on a hot day, asked about my family, treated me like a person, not just the help. And you repaid that kindness by letting her die. Yes, and I'll live with that forever. But maybe this evidence gives her justice. I left without saying goodbye. Some sins don't deserve forgiveness. Back home, I found Mom planting flowers in Grandma's garden plot. Her arm was out of the sling. Movement still careful but determined. Marigolds, she said. Mama's favorites. Thought it was time to bring beauty back. I knelt beside her, hands in the soil our grandmother had tended for decades. The FBI says there's restitution coming, enough to restore everything and more. What will you do with it? I'd been thinking about that all day. Create a foundation, the Marie Hayes Fund for Elder Protection, investigate fraud, provide legal help, maybe prevent the next Rick Williams from succeeding. Mom smiled through tears. She'd love that, using her death to protect others. Not her death, I corrected. Her fight, she saw through Rick before anyone else. She tried to stop him. We're just finishing her work. That evening, as the sun set over the house my grandparents built, I stood in the kitchen where everything began, the table where Rick hit me, the phone I'd used to confirm my escape, the floor where I'd fallen, but also the counter where Grandma rolled dough for decades, the window where Grandpa watched birds, the walls that held 60 years of love and laughter. Rick had tried to steal it all. He'd killed for it, schemed for it, destroyed lives for it. Now he'd rot in prison while the house remained, solid and true, waiting for new memories. My phone buzzed, a message from Karolina Stefanov. The renovation crew will arrive next week. Our gift. Let the house shine again. Even the criminals wanted to make amends. I almost laughed at the irony. Tomorrow, Rick would be formally sentenced. Tomorrow, the other victims would receive their restitution. Tomorrow, the healing would truly begin. But tonight, I sat at my grandparents' table, surrounded by their photos, and felt them with me. Their strength, their love, their fierce protection of what mattered. We won, Grandma, I whispered to her picture. We won. Wednesday morning. The courthouse was a circus. Media vans lined the street. Reporters thrust microphones at anyone who looked connected to the case. I slipped in through a side entrance Allie had arranged, avoiding the chaos. The courtroom was packed. Families of Rick's victims filled every row. I recognized faces from Mom's descriptions, Mrs. Patel, whose husband died thinking they'd lost their home. The Kowalski children, whose father's final months were spent in anguish over forged debts. Ellen Johnson, there to represent not just Bob, but the whole neighborhood Rick had terrorized. Rick entered in shackles, orange jumpsuit hanging on his diminished frame. Prison had aged him, the swagger was gone, replaced by something hollow. His eyes found mine across the room. I didn't look away. Judge Harrison, a severe man with 30 years on the bench, reviewed the charges: murder, fraud, extortion, racketeering. The list went on for minutes. Mr. Williams, you've pled guilty to all charges. Before sentencing, victims have the right to speak. Ms. Hayes. I stood on legs that felt like water, walked to the podium. I'd prepared a statement but left it in my pocket. The words came from somewhere deeper. Your Honor, Rick Williams killed my grandmother for a house, Not just any house, one built with love, paid for with honest work, meant to shelter generations. He saw only property value where we saw home. I turned to face Rick directly. You thought no one would miss an old woman. Thought her life was worth less than your schemes. But you were wrong. She was worth everything. And her house, it was never yours to take. My voice grew stronger. Marie Hayes was 81. She should have had years left. Christmases with family. Summers in her garden. The peaceful death she deserved in the home she loved. You stole all of that for money you didn't even need, just wanted. Other victims spoke after me. Each story another weight on Rick's shoulders. By the end, he'd shrunk into himself. No longer the man who'd terrorized a kitchen just 10 days ago. Judge Harrison's voice was granite when he spoke. Mr. Williams, in 30 years on this bench, I've rarely seen such calculated cruelty. You targeted society's most vulnerable. You murdered a woman who'd shown you kindness. You corrupted others into your schemes and destroyed families for profit. He paused, glasses reflecting the harsh courtroom lights. I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 200 years for the financial crimes, to be served consecutively. You will die in custody. Mr. Williams, you will never harm another elderly person again. The gavel fell like thunder. Rick finally looked up, found his voice. I want to say, no. Judge Harrison cut him off. You've said enough. Officers, remove him. As they dragged Rick away, he looked back once, our eyes met. In his, I saw something that might have been regret, or maybe just regret at being caught. Outside, the media frenzy intensified. This time, I didn't avoid them. Ms. Hayes, how does it feel to see justice served? I thought carefully. My grandmother is still gone. Other victims are still dead. Justice doesn't bring them back. But maybe it prevents the next Rick Williams. Maybe it makes the next predator think twice. What's next for you? Healing, rebuilding, and making sure this never happens to another family. That afternoon, Allie's office was flooded with calls. Families facing similar situations. Elderly people suspicious of sudden deaths. Children worried about their parents' vulnerability. The Marie Hayes Fund for Elder Protection. Still just an idea. Already had a purpose. We'll need office space, Allie said, scrolling through messages. Staff, resources, this is bigger than we imagined. The house, I said suddenly. Grandma's house. It's big enough. We could convert the first floor, keep the upstairs for living, make the downstairs a resource center. Mom looked up from where she was sorting victim impact statements. You'd turn their home into an office. Into a shield, I corrected. A place where elderly people can get help, where families can learn to protect their loved ones. Grandma would love that. Allie smiled. The Marie Hayes house. I like it. That evening, Karolina Stefanov's renovation crew arrived as promised. The foreman, a serious man named Marcus, walked through with me, taking notes. Full restoration, he said. Modern security system, handicap accessibility for elderly visitors, office space that still feels like a home. He paused in the basement doorway. You want us to work down there? The basement where Grandma died, where her last moments were spent in terror and pain. Yes, I said firmly. Transform it. Make it somewhere she'd want to be. Marcus nodded. 3 weeks, maybe 4. We'll make it right. As the crew began work, I stood in the backyard, watching the sun set behind the oak tree. Mom joined me, holding a box I hadn't seen before. I found this in my closet, she said. Been carrying it since we left the house Monday. Inside were Grandma's journals, decades of daily entries in her careful handwriting. I opened one at random. Schaupais. May 15th, 1987. Paid off the house today. George cried 30 years of mortgage payments. Done. We own our home free and clear. I pray it brings our children and grandchildren as much joy as it's brought us. Another entry, from just a month before she died. Kias. February 8th, 2016. That Williams man was here again, asking about our finances. our insurance. Something feels wrong. I've hidden the important papers in the coffee can in the freezer. George's old trick. If something happens to me, I hope Morgan finds them. The freezer, I breathed. Did anyone check? We ran inside, past the construction crew setting up equipment. The old freezer in the garage, untouched in 7 years. Inside, behind frozen vegetables planted who knows when, was a Maxwell House can. With shaking hands, I opened it. Documents, wrapped in plastic. The original deed. Grandpa's will, the real one. A letter addressed to me. My dearest Morgan, if you're reading this, something has happened. I feel it coming the way animals sense storms. That man who claims to help is a wolf. I've seen his kind before. The house is yours. It was always meant to be yours. Your grandfather and I decided long ago it should skip a generation. Go to someone who'd cherish it like we did. Be strong, my darling girl. Fight for what's yours. The house will protect you as you protect it. All my love, Grandma. I sank to the garage floor. Letter clutched to my chest. She'd known. She'd prepared. Even facing death. She'd thought of protecting me. Mom read over my shoulder, tears flowing freely. She was so strong, right to the end. They both were, I said, thinking of Grandpa's hidden coffee can trick. They built something worth fighting for. My phone rang. Detective Martinez. Morgan, thought you should know. 3 more victims' families came forward after the sentencing. All elderly homeowners who died mysteriously after meeting Rick. The FBI's opening investigations. How many people did he kill? We may never know for sure, but thanks to you, he'll never kill again. After he hung up, I looked around the garage. Tools on pegboards. Grandpa's organization system. Mason jars of screws and bolts. The lawnmower he'd maintained religiously, all waiting, as if he'd just stepped out. We're going to need all of this, I told Mom. When we open the center, Grandpa's tools can help other elderly homeowners with repairs. Keep them from falling prey to fake handymen like Rick. She smiled through her tears. They'd love that, both of them, using what they left to protect others. As we headed back inside, Marcus approached. Ms. Hayes, we found something in the wall. Looks like your grandmother hid it. He handed me a small wooden box, painted with check designs. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was her wedding ring, the one we thought had been lost. And beneath it, a photo I'd never seen Grandma as a young woman, standing in front of the house when it was new, holding baby Mom, looking directly at the camera with fierce determination. On the back, in faded ink, 1965, our castle, our fortress, our home, may it stand forever. It will, Grandma. I promised the photo. It will. Tomorrow, the real work would begin, building the center, helping other families, making sure no grandmother died alone and afraid in her own basement. But tonight, in the house that remembered everything, I felt my grandparents' presence like a warm embrace. They were gone, but not lost. Their love lived in every board, every brick, every memory these walls contained. And Rick Williams, dying slowly in a federal prison cell, would have decades to remember that some things can't be stolen, some loves can't be killed, some granddaughters don't give up. The house stood strong against the darkening sky, windows glowing with work lights as the renovation began. Not just restoration transformation, from a site of tragedy to a beacon of hope. Grandma would be so proud. 3 weeks into the renovation, the house was unrecognizable. Marcus and his crew had worked miracles. The basement where Grandma died was now a bright resource library with elderly-friendly lighting and no stairs. They'd installed a gentle ramp entrance from the garage. The kitchen maintained its homey feel while gaining modern security features. Every door had new locks that couldn't be picked. Windows had sensors, and discreet cameras covered every angle. Friday morning, Judge Harrison's clerk called. The judge would like to see you in chambers. It's regarding the property reversals for all victims. I arrived to find a conference room full of familiar faces, elderly victims and their families. Some I'd seen at the sentencing. Judge Harrison entered with a stack of documents. Good morning, everyone. I've asked you here because the federal asset forfeiture has been completed. Mr. Williams and Mr. Hutchinson's properties are being liquidated. Combined with the Stepfather organization's frozen assets, we have approximately $18 million for restitution. Gasps around the table. Mrs. Patel clutched her daughter's hand. Each victim's family will receive full property value plus damages, but I wanted to address something else. He looked directly at me. Ms. Hayes, the federal prosecutor has recommended an additional award to you for exposing this criminal enterprise, $2 million, as discussed. Your Honor. I stood. I'd like to propose something different. His eyebrows rose. Go on. That money came from suffering, from elderly people who died in fear and confusion. I can't just take it. I looked around the table at the other families. I propose we use half for the Marie Hayes Elder Protection Center and divide the other half among all victim families. Everyone here lost someone. Everyone deserves more than just property value. The room was silent. Then Mrs. Patel spoke. My husband would haunt me if I took money from the woman who got us justice. The center is enough, more than enough. Others nodded agreement. The Kowalski children's representative stood. Our father died thinking he'd failed us. Ms. Hayes showed us he was murdered. We don't need more money. We need that center so this doesn't happen to other families. Judge Harrison's stern face softened. This is highly irregular, but then, this entire case has been, I'll allow the victims to direct their additional awards as they see fit. By the end of the meeting, the Marie Hayes Center had pledges totaling $5 million, enough to run for decades, help thousands of elderly homeowners, prevent countless future tragedies. Outside the courthouse, Ellen Johnson hugged me. Bob would be so pleased. He always said your grandparents raised you right. That afternoon, I returned to the house to find Marcus installing a plaque by the front door. The Marie Hayes Elder Protection Center defending homes, protecting lives, honoring legacies. Carolina Stefanoff sent it, Marcus explained. Said every fortress needs proper identification. I traced Grandma's name with my finger, cast in bronze, permanent as the house itself. Mom arrived with Allie, both carrying boxes. Office supplies, Allie announced. We're officially incorporating. I've got 3 retired attorneys volunteering already, plus a forensic accountant who specializes in elder fraud. And I've been talking to the senior center, Mom added. They want a partner, weekly workshops on recognizing scams, protecting assets, estate planning. We worked until midnight, transforming the dining room into a conference space, setting up the living room as a welcoming reception area. The house began its new life still a home, but now a shield for others. Saturday brought unexpected visitors, a news crew, but not for a story. The reporter, Janet Maxwell, was there as a daughter. My mom was one of Rick's victims 5 years ago. We thought she'd lost her mind, signed away everything. After your story broke, we realized she'd been murdered. Janet's voice was steady, professional. I want to volunteer, media relations, publicity, whatever you need. By evening, we had 12 volunteers, children and grandchildren of victims, forming an army of protection born from shared loss. Sunday was supposed to be quiet, but my phone rang early. Detective Martinez. Morgan, I'm sorry to call on the weekend, but we have a situation. Another elderly homeowner, Grace Patterson. Her grandson thinks someone's pulling a Rick Williams on her. Where? Elm Street, 10 minutes from you. I'll be right there. I arrived to find an 84-year-old woman on her porch, arguing with a man in a suit. Her grandson, Tyler, stood protectively beside her. I don't care what papers you have, Grace was saying. I never signed nothing. The suited man saw me approach and his face changed. He recognized me from the news coverage. This doesn't concern you, he said quickly. Elder fraud concerns me very much. I pulled out my phone, started recording. What exactly are you claiming Mrs. Patterson signed? A legitimate loan document. She's 3 months behind. I never took no loan, Grace interrupted. I studied the man, nervous sweat, shifting feet. May I see this document? He hesitated, then handed over a folder. The signature was shaky, obviously traced. The notary seal was smudged. This is forged, I announced. Poorly, Mrs. Patterson. Have you called the police? Just did, Tyler said. They're coming. The man tried to grab the folder back. That's private property. That's evidence. I stepped back, still recording. What's your name? He actually ran to his car and peeled out. I got the license plate on video. Within an hour, police had arrested him, Daniel Morrison, recently released from prison, trying Rick's playbook. But this time, the playbook was known. The community was watching. How did you know? Grace asked over tea in her kitchen. Experience, and we're going to make sure everyone knows the signs. Mr. Morrison just became a teaching example. Monday morning, the Marie Hayes Center officially opened. No fanfare. We wanted a soft launch to work out problems. Our first client arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, and 78-year-old man worried about pushy contractors. By noon, we'd helped 6 elderly homeowners. 2 had been approached by scammers. 1 had already signed suspicious paperwork. All left with protection plans and direct lines to legal help. This is working, Allie marveled. It's actually working. That evening, as I locked up, I found a letter slipped under the door. No return address. Just my name in careful script. Ms. Hayes, you don't know me, but I knew your grandmother. I was one of the investors Rick brought to view houses. I didn't know then what he was doing. By the time I understood, it was too late. I'm dying cancer. Few months left. My conscience can't bear the weight. Enclosed is a cashier's check for $50,000. It's not enough. Will never be enough. But perhaps it helps others. I was there that day. March 2016. Waiting in the car while Rick went inside. I saw him leave quickly. I should have checked. Should have called for help. Instead, I drove away. I'm sorry. Your grandmother deserved better. We all did. A coward. The check was real. Another confession. Another confirmation. Rick's network of evil had included reluctant participants, people who chose blindness over action. I added the check to the center's fund, blood money transformed into protection money. As I drove home to Allie's, still not ready to sleep in Grandma's house, my phone rang. Carolina Stefanov. The renovation is complete, she said, but I wanted to warn you, Daniel Morrison, the man you caught today, he has friends, stupid friends who blame you for his arrest. Let them come. We're ready now. I know, but be careful. The work you're doing threatens many profitable operations. Not everyone handles disruption as professionally as I do. Strange to have a crime boss as an ally, but in this war against elder abuse, I'd take help from any source. That night, I dreamed of Grandma again. She stood in the renovated basement, running her hands over the smooth walls, smiling at the resource library. It's perfect, she said in the dream. But it's missing something. What? She pointed to an empty wall. Stories. They're stories. Don't let them be forgotten. I woke knowing what to do. Tuesday morning, I commissioned a memorial wall, photos and brief stories of every elder victim of property fraud in the county. Grandma's picture would hang first, but not alone, never alone again. The contractor who came to measure was young, eager. As he worked, he kept pausing, reading the stories I'd already gathered. My grandfather, he started, then stopped. Tell me. Lost his house 2 years ago. We thought he gambled it away. But this sounds exactly like what happened. He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo of a proud man standing before a modest home. Can he go on the wall? Of course. Bring me his story. By the end of the day, 3 more families had come forward with photos and stories. The memorial wall would be full, fuller than anyone wanted, but necessary. Because Grandma was right. Their stories mattered. Their lives mattered. Their homes mattered. And Rick Williams, in his cold cell, would know that his victims were not forgotten. They were remembered, honored, and finally through the center bearing my grandmother's name protected. The fortress stood strong, the shield was raised. The real work was just beginning. 6 months later, I stood in the county courthouse again, but this time in a very different role. The sheriff himself was pinning a medal on my blazer, the Citizen's Service Award, for exposing the elder fraud ring that had terrorized our community for 7 years. Morgan Hayes represents the best of us, Sheriff Coleman announced. She turned personal tragedy into public service. The Marie Hayes Elder Protection Center has prevented 43 attempted frauds in just 6 months. That's 43 families who still have their homes because one woman refused to let her grandmother's death be in vain. The crowd erupted in applause. I saw familiar faces everywhere, clients we'd helped, volunteers who joined our cause, elderly homeowners who now knew how to protect themselves. Mom sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face, but smiling wider than I'd seen in years. After the ceremony, reporters crowded around. One asked, "Ms. Hayes, what would your grandmother think of all this?" I touched the pearl earrings I wore Grandma's pearls. She'd probably say, "About time somebody did something," then she'd make everyone kolaches and get back to work. The crowd laughed. They'd have loved her fire, her determination, her refusal to be anyone's victim. As people dispersed, I noticed a familiar figure by the exit. Carolina Stefanoff, elegant in a charcoal suit, gave me a single nod before disappearing into the crowd. Her organization had quietly donated another $100,000 to the center last month. Crime boss or not, she kept her word about making amends. That evening, the center hosted its first annual fundraising dinner. The house, my grandparents' house, was packed with supporters. The memorial wall drew constant visitors, people touching photos of lost loved ones, sharing stories of recovery and justice. "Ladies and gentlemen," Allie called for attention. 6 months ago, this house witnessed violence and theft. Today, it stands as a fortress against those who would prey on our vulnerable. I'd like to invite Morgan Hayes to say a few words. I stood before the crowd, in the same kitchen where Rick had struck me, now transformed into a space of hope. Every person on that memorial wall trusted someone who betrayed them. My grandmother, Marie Hayes, was murdered for this house, but her killer made a crucial mistake. He thought the house was just property. He didn't understand it was a legacy. I gestured to the renovated spaces, the volunteers, the clients we'd saved. This is her legacy. Every elder we protect, every fraud we prevent, every family that keeps their home. That's my grandmother's victory over the man who killed her. Rick Williams sits in federal prison tonight, counting down decades he'll never see the end of. But we're not here to celebrate his punishment. We're here to celebrate our purpose, making sure there's never another Rick Williams. The room erupted in applause. As it died down, Tyler Patterson, Grace's grandson, stepped forward. "I have an announcement. Inspired by the center's work, 5 of us grandchildren of victims are starting law school next fall. We're calling ourselves Marie's Brigade. We're going to specialize in elder law and protection." More applause, more tears, the ripples of justice spreading wider than Rick ever imagined. As the evening wound down, I stepped outside for air. The oak tree my grandparents planted swayed gently in the breeze. Beneath it, a new bench bore a plaque, in memory of all those who died protecting their homes. Quite a journey from that kitchen floor to here. I turned to find Detective Martinez, now Captain Martinez, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Sometimes I can barely believe it's only been 6 months," I admitted. "You changed everything. The entire state is implementing programs based on your model. The FBI created a task force specifically for elder property fraud. And Daniel Morrison, he flipped too, gave us 12 more names. 12 more Rick Williams wannabes off the streets. Thanks to you," he paused. "I never asked, do you regret not moving to Denver, starting fresh somewhere else?" I looked back at the house, glowing with warmth and purpose. Through the windows, I could see Mom helping serve dessert, Allie consulting with a new client even during the party, volunteers planning next week's workshop. Never. This is where I belong, where I was always meant to be. As Martinez left, I walked back inside. In what used to be the living room, now our main reception area, a new family had arrived. An elderly woman clutched her daughter's hand, both looking scared but hopeful. "Are you Ms. Hayes?" the daughter asked. "We think someone's trying to steal my mother's house. We heard you could help." "We absolutely can," I assured them. "Let's sit down and go through everything. You're safe here." As I led them to a consultation room, I passed the largest photo on the memorial wall, Grandma in her garden, fierce and vital, just weeks before her death. Her eyes seemed to follow me, approving, protective, proud. The house that Rick Williams killed for had become the weapon that destroyed him and all others like him. The home he'd tried to steal now stood as an unbreachable fortress for the vulnerable. Later that night, after everyone had gone, I finally did what I'd been building courage to do for months. I moved back home. Not just visiting, not just working, living in my grandparents' house again. I climbed the stairs to my old room, now furnished with new memories alongside the old. On the nightstand sat 3 photos, Grandma and Grandpa on their wedding day, Mom and me at the center's opening, and the entire Marie's Brigade at the courthouse. Past, present, and future, all protected under this roof. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Hayes, my grandmother is 89 and someone just convinced her to sign papers she doesn't understand. Can you help?" I typed back, "Yes, come to the center first thing tomorrow. We'll protect her." Because that's what we do now. That's what this house does. That's what Grandma's legacy demands. As I turned off the light, I whispered to the darkness, "We got him, Grandma. We got them all, and we'll keep getting them. Every single one who thinks the elderly are easy targets. Your house is a shield now. Your death means their protection." Somewhere in the walls of the old house, I swear I heard her answer, "Good girl. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow there's work to do." And there always would be. As long as predators existed, the Marie Hayes Elder Protection Center would stand against them. As long as the elderly needed protection, this house would provide it. Rick Williams thought he was stealing a house. Instead, he created a movement. He thought he was silencing an old woman. Instead, he gave her voice eternal power. He thought he'd won when she fell down those stairs, but he'd only awakened something that would destroy him and save countless others. In his cold cell, serving life plus 2 centuries, I hope he thinks about that every single day. I hope he remembers the feel of this house he killed for and knows he created its transformation into his worst nightmare, a place where his kind of evil comes to die. The house remembers everything, and now it protects everyone. Grandma would be so proud. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope Morgan's journey of turning tragedy into triumph resonated with you. If you're listening to this, please comment below and let me know where you're from. I love connecting with listeners around the world and hearing your thoughts on the story. If you enjoyed this tale of justice and family legacy, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. And if you really want to help more people discover this story, hit the hype button to boost it in the algorithm. Your support helps these important stories reach those who need to hear them. Until next time, stay strong and protect those you love.